Dr. Anthea Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Shani, for having me.
It's so good to have you here. Now, for everyone who's listening, I've been working closely with Dr. Anthea for the past month, and she has been helping me up-level my health in all of the things. So, yeah, I think I messaged you the other day, Anth, and I was like, I am feeling like on fire. Like I'm like my body is firing, like my, like libido is firing, like everything is firing.
I know. I
So,
think there was a
yeah.
couple of eggplant emojis and water emojis. I'm like, yes, girl, get
Yes,
it.
girl, like little just squirting things. So yeah, I really wanted to get you on the podcast because one, I freaking love you, and two, you're such a wealth of knowledge, and it would be a shame not to get your message out there.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to impart some wisdom on women. This is the stuff that
Yeah.
I love. I just love helping people understand their bodies a bit more. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay, so you obviously are a fan of the Hey Sunshine podcast, so you know the opening question. What is magic to you, Dr. Anth?
Yeah, so this is a question that when I'm listening to all the other podcasts, I'm like, oh yes, this is what I would say. And then when you told me, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? But I will let you in on a little story, actually. When I was working with my kinesiologist, which, she's amazing.
Shout her out, Julianne
Shout her
Kelly.
out. Yeah, Pixie, she's amazing. She was saying how like the magic is being fully all of yourself and experiencing everything in life. And what I did is I actually I bought myself a ring. I'm wearing it now.
That's cool.
And it's engraved. Hopefully I can swear on this, but it says I'm the fucking magic.
That is so good.
So it's just like a good reminder of like, even if you're going through hard times or good times, things are working out exactly how they should, or they're not. Like, that's the magic of life. So yeah,
I love that.
Say.
You are fucking magic.
Everyone's their own magic. I love it.
Totally. I like even having like a ring to just like, prompt your mind to remember that as well. Yeah, it's so cool. Love it. So do you want to give us a little spiel about what you do and about Dr. Anthea and female fundamentals?
Yeah, so I'm originally a chiropractor. I'm actually from a family of chiropractors. It's like the running joke at Christmas, like, who am I going to give an adjustment to?
Yeah.
We're nerds like that. And basically I started out practicing for a couple of years, and then I really fell in love with helping women and trying to help the women that I would see. I'm like, oh, there's something wrong there, go see your GP. And then they would see their GP, and most of the time, thankfully, there would be nothing quote unquote wrong. But they would still have symptoms like, oh, I'm feeling really fatigued or tired, and my hair's really thin, or my periods are heavy. I just don't feel like myself. I'm really anxious or depressed. And it's like, that's not normal for women to feel, but it's really common. So I'm like, I need to understand a bit more about this. So after a failed attempt of moving to the UK in COVID, I moved back, but used it for good and went on to study a master's in women's health medicine and then a second master's in reproductive medicine. And what I learned was so much. It's all the medical side of things. But what I realized is women aren't identified in that space. It's like, well, if they don't have these objective measures, then there isn't an issue, or we don't really know what to do about it, or it's psychosomatic. And with my chiropractic background, really understanding the systems and being able to really understand the nuance and what people's bodies are telling me, I knew that wasn't necessarily the case. And subsequently, I've actually gone on to study functional medicine as well. At the moment, I'm halfway through that course as well. So just really looking at people through a medical, functional and energetic lens, and really helping people understand that just because one person says there's nothing wrong with you, you need to ultimately trust yourself and go, well, I don't feel like myself. So it doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with me. It just means I've used the wrong test or I've used the wrong lens. So yeah, that's sort of my journey with healthcare.
I think that is so amazing. And like, I have been I think I got to a point a couple of years ago where I was like, I hate doctors, because I came up against roadblock after roadblock when I came there, and I was saying, this is what I'm suffering and this is what I'm going through. And, it would even be like a fight to even get the bloody tests that I want. Like and this isn't, a hate against doctors. I think that it was just my journey and actually finding the right doctors for me and the right people in my healthcare team. But, you know, you hear it so many times that women aren't being like listened to, or they're being told like, oh, maybe it's your anxiety. And, you know, I could count on, you know, both hands, like, you know, so many women who have gone through that. And I think that this kind of leads to a question around like our body's intuition. Like we are so wise. Our body is so wise. And like our body is always trying to tell us something. Like, have you found that through the healthcare systems, women's intuitions have sort of been like switched offline because they're being told you're either crazy or it's all in your head or this or that or whatever?
Yeah, I would say in the healthcare system, but in society in general. I think thankfully it's definitely changing, but we can still make issues out to be our fault because we're a woman, or that it's more difficult to be a woman. It's complex. It's really hard to understand. It's like, I'm meant to exercise it this way at this part of my cycle or eat this thing. And it's like, sometimes it becomes like a second job just being a woman. And I'm like, it's not that complicated, really. There's set fundamentals, and that's where I created Female Fundamentals that every woman should do, and majority of your issues go away because our bodies work pretty similarly. Sometimes we do need personalized things, but when we get the fundamentals right, most things fade away.
So before we dive into like what the fundamentals are and all of that, like I want to hear a little bit about like your journey. I always think like people who are so passionate about something, like you're so passionate about women's health, like there has to be parts along your story that have really like led up to this being a big passion and mission in your life. So what was your health journey like, and what led you to here?
Well, I think it starts with my grandma. My grandma, she passed away 11 years ago, but when she was 50, she became a naturopath. And she was always fascinated with how the body worked. And she had like a colloidal silver machine before it was people even knew what colloidal silver was. She was making kombucha when people didn't know what it was. So she was ahead of her time. She was so healthy, had the best exercise and connection with relationships, but she was extremely stressed and she gave way too much of herself to people. So ultimately, that's what I think led her to an earlier death. So I've always been, interested and curious about what causes people to go into ill health. And I suppose for me personally, I actually, when I was younger, I had a heart condition that was diagnosed. I basically was doing nippers actually on a Saturday morning with my mum. Thankfully was the head of our age group on the day, and we were doing back-to-back Ironman. If you've ever done an Ironman, you don't want to do them back-to-back.
It sounds
you just
horrible.
want to do one. And I was going in, I think, for the third round of the swim, and I was like pretty much fainting. I'm literally going to drown if I go in. And I'm like, go. And I'm like, no, I can't. Like I'm going to drown.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after 45 minutes of laying flat on my back with my legs up, my heart rate was still 180, which is not normal at all. It should have been back to resting heart rate around 70. So I got that investigated, and thankfully with that, I went down the medical route and had to have surgeries and things like that. So it was amazing with that. And in year 12, I was thinking, well, maybe I want to be a surgeon. So I went and did observations in my local country town and got to see people get their gallbladders removed and emergency C-sections. It was like the best careers day ever for a Grey's Anatomy addict. And I was just like, oh, this is really good, but I would prefer to help people before they get to this stage. So then I went down the route of chiropractic. But I guess functionally wise, really what happened to me post university and starting work is I started developing acne, like adult acne, and I never had any issues with that in my teenage years. My periods were always normal and regular, no pain, no acne, anything like that. And then it started happening out of nowhere. I'm like, this is weird. University, I did not treat my body well. You know, everyone's drinking and eating terrible foods and going out late, not sleeping well. I'm like, my body was fine treating it like that. But now looking back and after doing some functional testing, what I already knew was because my stress levels were really high that was causing all of that. So stress or nervous system regulation is one of those fundamentals that I talk about. And that was the main one for me. And now subsequently I've changed how I'm working, I've changed where I'm living and all those things. And lo and behold, it's improved dramatically.
So your skin is like glowing right now. Like this is like, you're like, I don't know if it's a fit. No, it's not.
It's the lighting. It's the lighting.
It's the lighting. But your skin is glowing right now. And I think that's a really important one. I don't think environment is part of your, 4 pillars and female fundamentals, but environment is such a massive thing and plays such a massive role in our overall health. Like even when I moved to Byron, I was like my skin cleared up, like I was less stressed, and like it whether it's factors like, it could be like mold, or it could be toxins in your environment, or it could be that your environment is like going out and drinking all the time. Like it would play such a massive role in it.
So I tend to talk about environment in the nutrient pillar of one of the fundamentals. So nutrients, I talk about macronutrients like proteins, fats, carbs, and micronutrients, all the little Kickstarter sort of spark plugs that your cells need to work well. But sometimes when you're exposed to heavy metals in your environment, or plastics, things that work as, like, they're called xenoestrogens, which behave like estrogen in your body, but they bind stronger. So your body could work perfectly and just create the perfect balance of estrogen that month, but you've exposed yourself to all these external estrogens, and that will throw off like your liver and your periods and pain and irregularity. Like it can do all of those things as well. So yeah, it's definitely important to look at your environment.
So what would some of those, I'm like so keen to get on in the female fundamentals, but what would some of those external factors be? Like, because we hear about like perfumes and like artificial scents, but are there any ones that are a bit surprising?
Actually, something called excipients in supplements and protein powders in particular. I was actually talking to a patient a couple of days ago and about helping increase her protein intake. And she was struggling to think how she could do that. So I thought, well, let's get you a good protein powder. And I thought, oh, my housemate has a good protein powder. I went and grabbed it, and it said on the back 83% excipients. And excipients are, they're meant to be non-reactive sort of fillers in supplements, powders. Typically it'll be in a powder because it makes the product slippery when it's being created. So along the conveyor belt. So it makes it so there's less waste and less contamination and those things. But you don't want a whole kilo bag of protein powder, 83% of it to be not the actual stuff you want.
What the hell?
So that's a surprising thing that most people won't be looking at. And with your supplements, most good quality supplements will have the excipients listed. It's like soy lecithin is a really common name. If they don't have it listed, you can email or look up on the supplier's website as well. But that's something that we often don't realize, particularly if we're taking all these supplements to make us feel better, but then all the excipients add up at the same time.
So is that creating an excess of like estrogen in the body? Is that what it's doing?
Some of them can act like those xenoestrogens, so they can act like estrogen, but other times it definitely puts a lot of load on your liver, which your liver is responsible for breaking down your own estrogen. So if your liver can't do that, then inadvertently your estrogens can build up.
So I have been experimenting with a little DIY health hack. So to like bring like the excess estrogen down, I've been using flax seeds and ashwagandha. Do you recommend that?
Yeah, so flax seeds are an example of a phytoestrogen. So phytoestrogens are great, and they also have high vitamin E, which is a good detoxifier for your liver as well, which is amazing. So yes, flax seeds, big tip.
Load up.
Particularly for perimenopausal and menopausal women as well. So phytoestrogens, we want them in our diet, particularly as we get older, because our body's own production of estrogen starts to decline a little bit. But the phytoestrogens will help our body achieve balance of estrogen.
So if there's too much,
are like, I don't care what my body's doing, I'm just going to come and react to the receptor. Whereas the phytoestrogens will be like, I'll come if you need me, if your production isn't there, but I won't if you don't need me.
Yeah, I'm not going to stay if it's too high. Okay, that's cool. And ashwagandha as well, is that because I know that's good for like stress and perhaps excess in estrogen?
So how that will work is it's what's called an adaptogen. So your adrenal glands or your stress glands can be overactive or underactive. For you, yours were underactive, so they were fatigued. And ashwagandha will basically, if it's over or under, it will bring it back to a normal level. So when your body has that normal balance of stress, then it can actually produce your other sex hormones well, because it will always predominate your stress hormone over your sex hormones because you need to protect yourself over reproducing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So it comes back to your point before about like female health isn't complicated. It's just like you just got to know the right things to be doing.
Yeah. And your body tells you, not always every single thing in depth.
Caveat.
Caveat.
Yeah.
Your body tells you so much. And you don't just get diabetes. You can't go out and catch it. You can't go out and catch PCOS. You can't go out and catch Hashimoto's thyroiditis. You can't go out and catch these things because it's actually your body's dysfunction that's been there for a long time, and you've been switched off to your intuition or switched off to the signs and signals that your body's been telling you. Or you haven't even been switched off. You've just thought that they're normal because they're so common. Like, oh, my hair's really dry, or my skin's dry, I'm feeling really fatigued, but oh, my sister feels like that too, and so does 3 of my friends. It's like, oh,
so
that
must be normal.
Yeah. But it's not. It's just that dysfunction's been there for a longer period of time, and then eventually the cells that need to work are like, we don't have what we've needed for a long time.
Yeah, it's so like, now, fuck you, bitch, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's going to show up on your tests.
Yeah.
But thyroid's a classic one. Like, I'll see people that are really fatigued and tired, and they'll start to get more constipation. Their hair will start thinning and drying. Their skin will be dry, and they're feeling quite cold. They're always the person that's like, is anyone else cold in here? Like, their feet and hands are quite cold.
That's literally me.
Yeah. And on your blood test, I hope you don't mind me sharing.
No, it's fine.
On your blood test, thyroid, perfect.
But that's blood tests I did from the doctor. Like, yeah.
So that's what's called your TSH, which I won't get into too much of an analogy. I'm going to do a reel on it soon because it'll take too long. But basically, that's just your brain telling your thyroid to work. So it's actually more of a brain hormone than a thyroid hormone. But that was fine and normal. But when we did your other functional hair test, it was way off. So and now we're actually getting it back, and now you're starting to feel better. You're like, oh, my skin is nowhere near as dry. I don't feel like an old lady anymore. Yeah.
I was literally like messaging Anth and being like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm aging at a rapid rate. My skin is so dry. And she's like, no. I think it's just it's a thyroid thing or adrenals or whatever it is. But yeah, this is what I really love about what you do. It's like you catch the women who are falling through the cracks of the system. And it's like, it's not to say the system is wrong. It's just looking for maybe different things that aren't, really an indicator of what could be going on underneath the surface. So should we dive into the female fundamentals, the 4 pillars?
Let's do it.
So this is like your like signature framework around women's health, right?
Yeah, I would say so. So I often, basically let's just get into it. So the female fundamentals are a regulated nervous system. We always and this is such a hot topic at the moment, like childhood trauma. People are like, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden I've got ADHD. Like, I've been diagnosed as an adult. So all of these, everyone's understanding now that their little idiosyncrasies or personality traits can be that you're actually stuck in fight or flight, or you get road rage really easily. So you probably are in fight, or you're really defensive in arguments, or you just fawn, or you're a people pleaser. So those things can tell us a bit about what your nervous system is doing. But then we also go into blood sugars, your nutrients, and also metabolism. So it's not that one of them is better than the other, because they all impact each other. So if your blood sugars are really high, your cortisol will also go high. And that's where people, particularly with ADHD, they'll be seeking stimulus. They always want to go. Their mind's jumping from place to place. Often they'll feel better when they have a boost of sugar or caffeine, because it's giving their adrenals, which is the cortisol release, more of an uptake. So then it's like sort of feeding this vicious cycle. And vice versa. If you're stressed, what happens is your body goes, well, I need more energy in my blood, so I'm going to increase my blood sugar. And then when you increase your blood sugar for a long period of time, your cells get a bit sort of not annoyed, but they get resistant, and they're like, well, you've been telling me this for a long time, I'm just going to like become a little bit more deaf. So then you get insulin resistance, and then you get all this hormonal cascade that can happen. But then the nutrients, so say for instance, I was actually thinking this today when I was in Pilates, almost
as you do.
I was thinking, where am I in my cycle? I'm like, I actually think I actually need more iron, and that's why I'm not recovering as well, because my body just doesn't have the nutrients it needs. So I was thinking that's an important thing to remind people of, particularly when we're thinking, oh, cycle syncing, like make sure you're doing these exercises at this time. Sometimes it is just that you actually need to get your fundamentals right first and then focus on the cycle syncing, because it could be like, oh, I'm doing cycle syncing, but your iron is really low. So it doesn't really matter if you're like, oh, I'll push myself really hard in this follicular phase, because your body doesn't have enough oxygen for the muscles
you don't have
to
that
actually
baseline.
be able to repair. Exactly. And then the cellular metabolism I talk about, it's basically, if you imagine your cells like a car, you can have that. Metabolism is your ability to convert energy. So when people say, oh, you can eat anything and you don't gain weight, it's not exactly like that. It's more like if you imagine your cell like a car, and if you're a fast metabolizer, it's like you're trying to drive 100 kilometers an hour in second gear. So you're revving really fast. So being a fast metabolizer isn't necessarily a good thing. And also vice versa, if you're really far down into the slow metabolizer, it's like you're driving 20 kilometers an hour in sixth gear. So it's just about to sort of conk out. So either way, you're just not able to use the energy and the nutrients in an effective way. So your cells are just a bit clunky.
I love your analogies. I live for them. They're so good. So I really, wait, have we gone through, that was just one of the female fundamentals, wasn't it?
I talked about all four. And
how you did? Okay, yeah, you did. Okay, no, I was like waiting for like the names of each of them, but that's fine. So what do we think in our body that is normal that isn't normal? Like, so say like, for example, like, you know, PCOS right now has become such a norm. Like I feel like every single person, every second person has it. And it's becoming something that is just like talked about as something that is, oh, we just have it. So, and that's it. And, you know, period pain and all those sort of things. What would be some that you have to add to that list?
Yeah. So I guess if we think about what is normal, then you can figure out, or healthy, then you can figure out what is abnormal. So your cycle should be between 21 and 35 days. And this is given that you're not on any hormonal contraceptives, because if you're on a hormonal contraceptive, your period is not actually a period. It's just a withdrawal bleed from the hormones. So it's something to consider. So it should be between 21 and 35 days. If it's outside of them, then you know you haven't ovulated. Then in terms of how long your actual bleed should be, that should be between 3 to 7 days. If it's less than 3, then it's telling us that your body doesn't have enough estrogen. If it's more than 7, it means that you have probably too much estrogen. It can also be a sign that your thyroid's not working very well. And then we consider if you're getting pain. So pain, it's normal to feel a little bit of discomfort, but it should never affect your ability to carry out whatever you need to do that day. And it can sometimes feel like pressing on, say, like a 4 or 5 day old bruise. But if it's like excruciating, that's abnormal. It doesn't necessarily mean you have endometriosis. That's a really common question that I get asked. Pain and endometriosis aren't interlinked like directly. I can't think of the word.
It's gone.
I can't think of the word. But yeah, so some people have no pain and they do have endometriosis, and people have pain and they don't have endometriosis. It depends on where that endometrial tissue is in the body. Also things like getting tender breasts, that's not normal. With your cycle, something that you can think about, if you get tender breasts before your period, it's often a sign that your copper is high and your liver is struggling. Copper and estrogen sort of go together, so your estrogen is high. And if you get tender breasts after your period, it's often a sign that your zinc is high over your copper.
Oh my God. I used to have like literally before my period, like my boobs would be, I couldn't even touch them. Like I would literally like go to put on my bra, but like, ow, 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 ow. Like they were just so big and sore. And then I started the seed cycling, and then that really like helped mitigate the sore boobs, which is like next level.
Yeah. So because you were upping those phytoestrogens and that was helping your body be like, oh, we're just going to bind here softly, so then the other ones can drop away, and supporting your liver detoxify the estrogen. Amazing.
Yeah. So good. Cool. So is there anything else that we want to add to that?
Other signs that aren't really related to your period can be,
what about like hormonal acne? Sorry, that just came to mind.
Yeah. So hormonal acne, if it's around your chin, jawline, that's associated with high amounts of androgen. So androgens is a umbrella term for what we commonly term as testosterone. There's 3 different types of it. And one of the types will give you hormonal acne around the chin and jawline, as well as you can start to develop male pattern hair growth. So chest, chin, nipples, belly button, back. And you can also lose hair in a male pattern. So around like sort of like a receding hairline you can get as well. So that's associated with PCOS or PCOS. Yeah. With PCOS as well, you will get irregular cycles. And you can get cysts on your ovaries from that, because when you have an irregular cycle, it means you haven't ovulated. And ovulation is the release of that egg. So when you don't release the egg, you form a cyst. And that cyst, the wall of the cyst, produces more of those androgens. And that's why you get the male pattern hair growth and hair loss. Wow. And you also want to look out for insulin resistance with that. So say, for instance, someone like me, I actually did all this medical investigation to see whether I had PCOS. 1 in 4 people actually have PCOS.
Wow.
And it's one of the main causes of infertility. That is, and it's very easy to address for infertility. So if you are someone with PCOS, they say that you will have the amount of children that you want to have. Like, it's not going to stop you from having them, which is great.
That's so good.
But when I did my tests, all of them medically were fine.
Yeah.
Internal ultrasound fine, all the blood's fine. And really, I didn't have any irregularity, and I didn't have any insulin issues, which are 2 of the factors, but I did have the hormonal acne. So I'm thinking, okay, well, it's not PCOS, but it is that I do have the high amounts of androgens, which is just one of the symptoms of it. So then, yeah, as I said, changing my diet, doing a hair test myself, helping support my liver. My copper levels were extremely high and my liver was struggling. So that was the main thing that I needed to do, and decrease the stress. So looking with a lens of the 4 female fundamentals and understanding which ones I really needed to target. That's what helped me.
That's so good. My brain is like like so many. I know this is going to help so many women because, you know, as I said, I'm like every second person I know has got, you know, PCOS, or they're having hormonal acne, or, you know, there's just so many things that we've just come to coin as like normal, but it's like it's a few slight tweaks and it's like you can have like relief, especially from period pain. Like I don't know if you remember in school, like so many of my friends had like crippling period pain where it's like they couldn't come to school, and it's like it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, I had heaps of friends that had like Nurofen or Panadol in their laser pockets.
I know. Yeah. Oh wait, what was the one that everyone used to take at school? What was it called? There was like a naproxenic. Do you remember that?
Okay. I'm thinking I'm never normally one to take things, but yeah, that will relax all those smooth muscles. One thing I will say is that if you have been diagnosed with something, obviously follow through with what your primary doctor is telling you to do, but just consider a bit of a mind shift in, if you have been diagnosed with something, a diagnosis is a label of a bunch of symptoms. So diagnosis is still a symptom. It doesn't tell you why you have it. It just tells you what you have.
That's good.
So don't necessarily just stop at, oh, yes, I have PCOS, so I have to do this. Be like, okay, well, why do I have PCOS? Or I have endometriosis, so I have to, it's like, why do you have it? So really understanding the underlying cause. And that's where that functional lens and the energetic lens comes in.
Yeah, that's so good. And the hair test with you is amazing. It's like, you know, if you get your hair test from the doctor, it's like that on steroids, like just the depth that it goes into, and it like compares like different minerals against different, I don't know, you obviously explain it so much better. So we've obviously spoken about the female fundamentals, but like if we zoom out and maybe talk about some like general things that happen in our body, like what are they telling us? Like I know you did some cool ones about like brittle nails and like, you know, like the ridges on our tongue and stuff. Like what are some things we should be looking out for as telltale signs in our body?
Yeah, so an easy way to understand what's happening with your body right now is looking at your hair, skin, nails, and tongue, because they're all what's called metabolically variable. So they change over quite quickly. So if your hair is quite thin, brittle, breaking, or you're losing a lot, you'd want to consider what your thyroid is doing, and also like protein and iron are a big one for women in particular. Like iron deficiency is crazy.
Yeah.
It's so
know
common.
it quite well.
Yeah, and you feel terrible with it. In terms of your nails, if you get those white spots on your fingernails, that can be a sign that you have high copper and low zinc, particularly if you're someone that suffers with anxiety and or depression, because we actually need zinc to be able to help us ovulate. And when we ovulate, we produce progesterone. Progesterone is a natural anti-anxiety hormone. It's amazing. It also helps us produce serotonin and dopamine in our gut, which we know that people take SSRIs, which help keep what little amounts of serotonin and dopamine we have reacting, but this actually helps us create more from our gut because we produce 90% of it from our gut. Also, again, if things are brittle or breaking, always think protein, iron, thyroid.
Okay.
That goes for hair, skin, and nails, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or dry skin in particular. And with your tongue, if you're noticing what's called scalloping on the outsides of your tongue, it's sort of like a wavy outside of your tongue. It can be that your tongue is a little bit bigger. So there can be inflammation in your gut. It can also mean that you might have the beginnings of insulin resistance, because what happens is we tend to store more sugar in our fat. So our fat gets bigger, or our muscles get bigger, and your tongue is a muscle. So your tongue can get slightly bigger as well. Signs of inflammation can also be if you get the fissuring, so like cracks in your tongue too.
Yeah.
Back to thyroid, if you're getting a thinner outside of your eyebrow, I know girls love to groom their eyebrows and make sure they have big bushy eyebrows at the moment. Don't bring back the 90s.
I know, God, it's horrible. I think women are still recovering from that.
So if you're getting the thinning of the outside of your eyebrow, that's a pretty strong indication that you might have an underfunctioning thyroid as well.
So our body's always communicating with us, but do you have any tips on like how we can like really be in tune with our body and what it's trying to say? Like obviously looking out for the warning signs, but is there anything else that can help us keep like check or in check with our health?
So all of those things I just mentioned then, but also a really amazing thing that's often overlooked is just regularity. So how regular do you use your bowels? How regular is your cycle? Are you getting regular sleep? Because sleep is a passive thing. It's not an active thing. People say, oh, always make sure you get good sleep, good exercise, good nutrition. It's really easy to be able to go, I'm eating this food or I'm moving my body this way. We can have good bedtime routines and set the time, but sometimes we're laying there and it's like, I've done all the good things, but I'm not falling asleep. Why am I not falling asleep? This is so annoying, getting shape. So sleep is also a symptom. So sometimes if you're having trouble falling asleep, it can be that your calcium is really low. That's like that old wives' tale of having a glass of milk before you go to bed. Probably don't do that if you're lactose intolerant.
Yeah, I would shit myself. Not
Put
good.
a tarp down before you go to bed. But that can be that your calcium is lower, and also it can be that you're highly stressed. But if you're someone that wakes up a lot in the middle of the night, it can be that your magnesium is an issue. So looking at regularity of things will help you understand how your body is functioning as well. And then also what I do is just tune into my actual body every day. So doing embodiment practices are amazing. I literally just wake up, put on a nice song that goes for about 4 or 5 minutes, and actually like say good morning to my body and touch my body, and then ask it, is there anything you'd like to let me know? And that's an amazing activity I actually got given by Pixie.
I love that.
It's so good, and it's helped me actually connect into when I'm trying to make a decision. It's like, oh, is this what I should do, or is it not what I should do? It's like, does this feel like it's pulling me towards it, or am I retracting back? And I didn't have that in the past. I used to think that I was really in tune with my body, and I was from the outside, being able to look and see symptoms, but also internally understanding what your body is telling you from its intuition is an amazing thing to be doing as well as women.
Has there been any like weird stuff that it said?
One of the first things was showing me like a red fire truck and a yellow slide at a park. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
You're like, cool, what should I do?
Am I going to go get stuck on a kid's slide and I need a fireman to come save me? I'm like, oh, maybe.
It's like, do I need hydration and play? Like, is that what it is?
Oh, I love how that's where your mind went.
It's so funny. I know, but it's just like, who knows what our body's trying to tell us. But I think that's so important about like actually tuning in, because when we're so in our head, it's just like, it's so logical and it's rational, but it's like our body, like the wisdom that's in our body is just, it's so different and it's subtle, and it's like to listen to it, we actually need to slow down. So that's such a beautiful practice.
And that's what I learned. I was like, how do I know if this is my intuition or if this is just my mind telling me? And it was something I struggled with for probably a bit too long. And what I've realized is that if it's my intuition, there's no reason necessarily. It's not like, oh, you should do this because otherwise you'll run out of time, or this person will react like this if you do that. It's just like, no, you should do this. It's just like a knowing. It's not driven by fear or wanting a reward or something like that. It's just like, this is what you should do.
I find like the fear-based thoughts are like pestering, like it's like repetitive, whereas intuition's like one drop in and then it's like you like feel it, you're like, oh, rather than fear is always like, you need to do this, go there, like very repetitive and fast-paced. But
like
it's
what
like
Lacey Phillips says, the
pings completely that. I feel like there needs to be a freaking PhD in fucking learning to listen to your body and like learning to tap into your intuition, because it's a whole nother fucking kettle of fish. So I would really love to finish on, like, you're a projector 3-5, right? So I would love
only the best people are.
Only the best people. I know, literally, like every one of my friends is a 3-5. But do you want to tell us a little bit about like how being learning that you're a projector is like really impacted like how you live your life and do business?
Yeah, I guess it's really helped me when I've paired it with my intuition as well. Really learning that I don't have to be always in push and going and like trying to make things happen instead of just allowing things to come to me. And as a projector, just putting out my wisdom and allowing people to see that, sort of like that lighthouse. And then people who want the information can come, and people that don't, it's like amazing, great. So I guess it's helped decrease the stress levels as well. Now, so at the start I was like, this is so annoying. What do you mean I have to wait for invitations?
I know, it was fucked.
So I just have to sit here and do nothing. This is more stressful. I'd rather be doing things. But now it's like, okay, you just do the things that you know you're naturally really good at, and you can help people, and then just watch things come to you.
I love that you said about the lighthouse, and I feel like your Instagram page is literally that. It's like you put out so much amazing content, like there's so many amazing reels, you do your like weekly quizzes, which is just showing like you're putting so much on the table, and then the right people will then just like pick it up and be like, oh yeah, like I'm vibing with this chick.
And the branding looks good because, you know.
Oh yeah, I don't know who did that one. So how can people connect with you? I know you've got an amazing course coming out. So tell us all the ways we can get in your world.
So I created a program called Fluent, and it's everything that every female needs to know to be fluent in her body. It's all the stuff that I wish I was taught at university, or not at university, at high school. And it's all the common questions that I get asked, like, what does it mean if I have ovulation pain? Or how do I know when I'm ovulating so then I can either achieve pregnancy or avoid pregnancy? How do I support my body when I'm coming off contraceptives and I don't want to fall pregnant, or I do? Tender breasts, all that sort of stuff. So it's that's live now, and you can find that on my website, which is femalefundamentals.com.au. And you can also jump over onto my Instagram. There's all the links on there too, and I work one-on-one with patients to help them, particularly if you've got issues where you're like, I have been to all these people and everyone's been telling me that there's nothing wrong with me, but I just feel like there is something wrong. Those are the people that I help.
Like me people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you want to do what I did a hair test with you, and then like, you know, got on these incredible supplements and just having your support and everything. So it's been amazing. And all systems firing, which is, you know, the best thing I could ever ask for.
And it's so amazing to see. I love hearing this feedback. So I'm so happy for you.
Yay. Well, Dr. Anthea, I can never call you anything but Dr. Anthea ever again. Thank you so much for coming on the potty and sharing your wisdom. And yeah, I know this episode will help so many women know their bodies better.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy.
All right, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.